seconds to stardom, folks. Be sure and smile. You never know what talent scout is out there. Hello. Hello, and welcome to, what is it? You caught me in the middle of my doing something here. It is Understanding Movies, right. This is our class. This is FA255, Understanding Movies, the American Cinema. This is the orientation session when we talk about what is going on in this class, what is it all about, what's expected of you, and all of that sort of thing. So let's just jump into it and get started. First of all, you want to know who I am. My name is Lucanio, and you'll find me over in building 17. My office is room 208. You can see there my office hours are Tuesday mornings, 9:30 to 10:30. And you can't make that. We'll try to work out a time that you can make it if you absolutely positively have to see me. One of the things about this course that I emphasize is that if we need to communicate for whatever reason, use email. As you can see on the screen, I have two email addresses for you. One is the campus one, and one I just have that you can contact me so that we can have good communication, because the worst thing to do is to call me. Because I'm only on campus one day a week, and if you call me at 10:30 and I'm not there, I won't pick it up until later, a week later, and then I'll call you back, and then you're not there, and so that's how it works. So we don't want to do that. So use email, and also part of this course, we don't do anything on Moodle other than I store documents up there for you. So that's about the only thing that we deal with regard to the Moodle thing. So anyway, and so you probably want to know, why am I teaching this course? Who am I? What do I know? Okay, I've spent most of my professional career teaching film studies. I've written a few books on it. I've been a talking head in a film, and I just have studied film for most of my life. Even when I wasn't a professional, I fell in love with movies at a very young age. And coming out of the dark ages like that, folks, there wasn't much that you could find about movies. It was very much a hidden world, and nobody knew how movies were made. It was just all magic, and it was just a very, very interesting thing to try to find information about what movies were all about. But I was crazy about movies. And so I looked at a lot of movies, and then I got a degree in English, and then I decided to go back to school and get a degree in film studies. Those the latest things I've worked on. I wrote an essay for a book on that one on Rocket Man, and I wrote the essay on the history of Ziv television for a book called Science Fiction Theater. So lately I've kind of turned my attention a little bit towards broadcasting, but my first love is always film. And also I'm crazy about radio, old-time radio, because my specialty, my emphasis is the study of Hollywood in the 40s and the 50s. And so part of that was involved with radio. And so I edit a magazine for a society that preserves all of this. Magazine is called Radiogram. And I am also part of the Radio Redux repertory company here in Eugene. And in a couple of weeks, we're putting on It Happened One Night. My job is, I never stop talking, so my job is that I prepare a lecture, a little talk about each program before they go on. It's at the Holt Center, so in 2 weeks I'll be talking about a very, very famous motion picture called It Happened One Night, which is considered the beginnings of the screwball comedy. That is something that you will learn about in this class. And as it was produced on the Lux Radio Theater in 1939. Okay, so now moving on. Let me emphasize again, I want to emphasize that to everybody. Don't call me, because we're not going to be able to do much communicating if you try to use that old way called a telephone. So don't call me. And I just want to keep this going and saying that you will use email. You will use email. You will use email. You just think about that and everything's going to work out fine. Okay, the textbook. All right. The textbook, I don't care what edition you get for this course. The reason being that the films that you're going to be watching, the videos, are about 15 years old. So if you had the first edition of the book, you really have the edition that works with those specific videos. The only difference in the editions, besides outrageous prices, the only difference in those editions is that the newer editions, they do bring you up to date to newer films that you would most likely have seen, as opposed to the older films, which only film people look at. So that's the only difference. So again, it doesn't make any difference what edition you get for this course. They all work. And I always try to have them keep the older editions in the bookstore, but I know, places like Smith Family and even online, you can pick up a copy of the first edition for a couple of bucks. So anyway, that's the thing about the book. All right, moving on. What is this course all about? Well, it's an introductory course that brings Hollywood filmmaking into clear focus as first, what you would expect, an art form. In other words, you're going to look at movies as works of creation, human creation, films that say things to us and we talk about it. The aesthetics of film. We can look at it the same way we look at photography or even art, the same way we look at paintings and those kinds of things. We also can talk about film the same way that we talk about literary works. We can talk about films as theatrical events and so forth. It's the same way that when we study a book or we study a painting or whatever, we can talk about it as an art form. But it is also very much an economic force. And this is one thing that in all my film classes, I always tell people that when you talk about Hollywood film production, you have to think first and foremost of this. It is a business first. They don't give a rip about art. That's the bottom line. They'll tell you they love art, but they won't make a movie unless they know they're going to make money on it. That's the bottom line. They put things into films to make sure that it's going to appeal to people. They do all of this kind of stuff. Now, yes, as a cynic, I say it's a business first. They make films to make money. Does that negate the idea that it's an art form? No, it does not. So we can still talk about certain films that, yes, even though this film was produced in order to make money, this film resonates with things that we can talk about. And they do it to such a degree that it's a lot better than all of these other films that were made to make money. So we can talk about them. So yes, it's still an art form. It's still an economic force. It's also a method of communication. It also talks to us about our culture. I remember one film critic once said at the change when they started to create all of those mad slasher, knife and kill them up, carve them up movies. What was that, about the 80s, I think, in the 1980s when they were doing that. And I remember one of the critics said, yeah, if that tells what we are all about, and if some guy landed here from Mars and wanted to see what is America all about, and let's look at their culture and we look at all of these films, they would really think that we were something and they probably would go away and not visit us. Okay, because if our entire world is nothing but slicing and carving up people. But so it does tell us something like that about who we are and what we are. And it's been doing that since the turn of the last century. The films have been talking to us, telling us, defining us, doing these sorts of things. All right, moving on. The American cinema probes the deeper meanings of American movies. with regard, this is their term, I don't like it, but it's their term, so I use it, the hidden message of genres. It's what is told to us when we see a Western. What is it really telling us when we see a Western? What is it telling us when we see a war film? What is it saying really underneath everything in a film noir? What does film noir really talk to us about? So our film series talks about that. It's the social and psychological effects of style. There is the style of filmmaking. And I have seen, I'm old enough. I'm an old guy, folks, and I've seen the change in film style. I've seen it go from the long take, that's what we call it, the long take, in which the camera just lingers on things that are happening in front of us, on the screen. It lingers on that. The long take, especially, that worked in the 1950s when we went to widescreen, where they allowed more action, more things to be done within that frame, up to the present day in which we have lots and lots of cutting, rapid cutting that, it's just, you can't linger on an image for more than a couple of seconds, where we just have to keep cutting. And also with that kind of idiotic TV style in which it's always moving. It's either got to be doing this or it has to be traveling all the time. What are the psychological effects of that? They'll talk about that. What is the social effects of that? What does it mean all the time that if we're looking at something and it is cutting rapidly, 2 seconds worth, what is that doing to us? Okay, and the mutual influence of society and popular culture. Back to the mad slasher films. When we talk about that, always the controversy that goes with it, and that is it turning people into mad killers? Or is it just reflecting our society, which is full of mad killers? Okay, that's the thing, and the question has always been, is it the film that causes you to do something, or is the film just reflecting what we are already about? And is there that kind of, does a film have that kind of power? I mentioned earlier about It Happened One Night, and I'll be talking about that in a couple of weeks, that film It Happened One Night. There's an old story that goes with that Clark Gable undresses in that film. This was made in 1934. He takes his shirt off, and he doesn't have an undershirt. It's just his bare chest. The story that goes with that is apocryphal, but it's told over and over again, is that the sale of men's undershirts collapsed after that. Now, that's an idea. I mean, that's the concept about, does Hollywood films, do they influence us? Well, of course, the correct answer is yes. It does influence. But And the proof right there too is, do visual images, do they sell? Do they really work on us? And the answer is yes, it has to be. Otherwise, we are the dumbest creatures on earth, because we spend billions every year on advertising, commercials. To do what? To influence you. And if it doesn't work, then why are we wasting all that money? That's a good question to ask. Do we have answers? No. Nobody ever has the answers. Okay, the schedule works this way. Each week you get to see a 60-minute lesson. It is broadcast on the cable system. It is also available online, as you can see down there. And don't panic, it's on the syllabus, that long address. It is also, it's one of the things I have on Moodle for you, that there is a link to the Annenberg site. So you could go to the Moodle page and click on that, and you can watch these videos whenever you want to. That way you're not held hostage by Comcast or whatever. So anyway, that's how that works. And then the next time I talk to you will be on April 25th, and I will be in this room, and I will tell you what's going to be on the midterm exam. It'll be kind of a review. You don't have to be here for that. You don't have to be in this classroom. You can watch it at home, and that's all there is. Then you take the midterm. It is April 28th through May 5th. You have 1 week to get it done. I had a student not too long ago saying, it takes a week to do the test? No. It's available to you for 5 days or 7 days, because we do miss Sunday because they are open on Saturday. But so you have a week to complete the test, all right, in the testing center. Then I will talk to you again on May 23rd. Now, what's different about this is I'll be 2 weeks ahead of it if it's live, because of Memorial Day. On May 30th, there is no school out here, but that will be rebroadcast on May 30th that night. But so I'll be a week ahead of when the test would begin. And then, of course, the final exam runs June 2nd through June 9, again in the testing center. So what do we do? Well, obviously, your lecture for the course are the video programs. So you watch these videos that are available to you. And then, again, let me remind you that as I understand, at least my study of this, my students, and it's not scientifically accurate, but almost all of them this year, when I've since fall term, almost all of them are watching it online. So it's just kind of the cable thing is not really working. So there's that cable address. Okay. Then you'll read appropriate sections of the text that go along with those videos. Belton, who wrote the text, is a good film scholar, and he does add some. He amplifies what the videos have already talked about, so it is kind of a good complementary package there. Take notes if you have to. If you're a genius and you don't have to, don't bother. But if, it's like any other class, you might want to take notes out of that. And then when you have all of this information, then we get to the course requirements. Well, the first requirement is you got to make sure you're not a crook, so that you're going to stay in here, and I have to make sure that you're going to be in class. So what you do is you go to Moodle, and there is one little page thing, and I hate doing this, but I go into it at the end of the week and I read this little thing, and all it is for you to tell me why you're here and what film is your favorite. The film that you like best of all of them. And it's very interesting reading. I really enjoy reading it. And you don't have to do anything other than to say, I like this film because it does this for me. That's all. I don't want an analysis. You don't have to sit there and write 20 pages on why it's, defending it. Just tell me why you like it. And it's good. It's good because a lot of us, and that's a legitimate response in many cases, is to say, I like this film because I just like it. There is something about it. Like I had this opportunity, I just, tell you, last week I went to the Regal, the Cinemark. They show old movies there, and one of my all-time favorites, one that just speaks to me and resonates with me, and I went to see it on the big screen, in the big wide screen, and I just about shed tears over being able to see it again in a theater setting, in a wide screen, and that was The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Sergio Leone's masterpiece, and it was just absolutely wonderful to see that film. And to see it in again, where it was supposed to have been seen, back in a movie theater. And I like that movie. And I'll tell you right now, the reason I like that movie is because, I don't know, it just does a lot for me. Not all the, don't think it's all the killing and stuff. It's his style. Leone and his, that beautiful opening shot of the wide angle, long shot that goes forever, and then suddenly this guy's head's right in the middle of it. It goes from the extreme long to the extreme close. He's a master. He's a master. But anyway, check in and do this kind of thing, and then I know you're in the class. Okay, now we move on to more serious things. You take 2 exams, that's it. You take a midterm and a final, nothing else. That's all there is to this course. No papers, nothing like that. So look out. 50 questions. I'll have 50 questions for you. They're multiple choice. There'll be 50 questions on the midterm, 50 questions on the final. They're all done in the testing well, whatever they call that thing now. It used to be the testing lab. Over there, brand new, really cool, neat building, all that sort of thing. And it's a computer exam, but, you know, I can't believe this. I had a problem last quarter. Sometimes I wonder. They have rules in there, okay? And you're going to have to obey those rules. It's that simple. So you have to take your hat off. That's all I'm going to say. All right. What you can take with you is and they allow this, 1 3x5 note card. I've always taught with open book, open note tests. But the testing lab won't let you do that, but they do allow the 3x5 note card. So, again, if you try to, you know, you study for the test and you go, man, I know everything, but I'll never understand aspect ratio. I don't know what that's about. Write it on the card, because chances are, if you're a born loser like I am, you know, the one thing that I wouldn't know would be make up most of the test. So bring, you know, your notebook or your note card with it that explains the stuff that you're just not too familiar with. You are responsible for your exam. You get there, you take it, and you get it done with. I'm not responsible. You are. And on Moodle, I will have a study guide for you to download. The study guide will appear probably the week before the test. And it will have the material that we've studied so far, blah, blah, that kind of thing. And extra credit. Yes, I do allow extra credit. Now, I allow that as kind of an insurance. So all of you are smart. All of you are intelligent. You don't need it because you're all going to pass the test. But let us just say that for some reason you didn't do too well on that midterm. And you say, you know, I hear it all the time, I'm the best student that ever lived, but I just didn't do too well on that midterm. And then I say, fine, okay, what do you want to do about it? Well, I want to show you that I do know something about film, that I can write about a film, blah, blah. And I say, okay, that's what we do. So with your extra credit, you have two options. You can write a paper on the production elements of a single sequence of any film, but I'm fiendish about this. I'm going to force you to watch a film that you otherwise would never watch. It has to be made before 1970. Now, some of you are going, oh my gosh, I can't do that. I can't do that. I could be even worse. I mean, I could really get you and say it has to be a black and white movie. Okay? But no, it just has to be done before 1970. And so anyway, it is explained in the syllabus about what that sequence is. Or your other thing is, if you are so inclined, you can produce your own narrative or documentary production. If you say, hey, I'm good at making films, I can show you, you know, good. The only requirement for that is it can't be more than 10 minutes. Because if everybody did that, I'd run out of time. But anyway, it's in the syllabus. All right, moving on. Details in the deluxe syllabus that are available on Moodle if you didn't get one. And I also want to remind you to read the blasted thing. Last quarter, I encountered all kinds of people that said, what are we supposed to do? I said, read the syllabus. Or people that would say, are we having a test? You know, and I'm going, I just want to, I don't know. I can't talk about it. All right. If you're confused, bewildered, rattled, depressed, desperate, like I am every day of the week, then stop by during office hours and we can commiserate together. So this is the way it looks. The first thing we're going to look at is the classic Hollywood style. And what you're going to see on this one is you're going to find out that classic does not simply mean old. Classic is not old. Classic means something else. Then we move to the studio system. A very interesting kind of business that was created here. As a matter of fact, it was called, it's still called, not as often today, but it was called in the old days, it was called the movie industry, the film industry. The reason that got that term was because that's what it was. It was a factory. People went to work and made movies there. As a matter of fact, even in the silent era, some of the early silent studios, that's what they did. You had an 8-to-5 job. You came, you made these movies, and you went home. And that was it. Got your check. And then we moved to the star, that very unique thing that occurred during the silent era. This thing where people wanted to know, who is that person up there that's doing all of this performing? We really like that person. And this person then suddenly had a lot of gravitas. This person all of a sudden says, they're coming to see me, you know. And then we move into genre. The first one is the very American genre of the Western, what it's all about. Then they move into the romantic comedy, which they do talk about the screwball comedy, which is what It Happened One Night is all about. Then they're the only people on earth that call it the combat film. Everybody else calls it the war movie. But they'll talk about what combat film was all about. It's kind of psychological and social effects on audiences. Then everybody's favorite genre, film noir, the shadowy form. And they'll ask the question, which doesn't have an answer, but they'll ask the question, is it really a genre or is it just a film style? You know, okay. And then we move film in the television age. What was happening to Hollywood as TV started to entertain us? What was movies? How are they going to respond to it? The bottom line is, in the 50s, they responded by offering a technology that you couldn't get at home. Then we moved to the film school generation, what is known as the movie brats. This is where you actually go to college to learn how to make movies. They didn't have these kind of courses. You just made movies. You just learned. You just got a job, you know, sweeping the floor of the studio, and next thing you know, you're directing movies. Here you study it. It becomes part of your education. Then we move to the edge of Hollywood. Now, for them, this really is the edge for them, because I told you the series is old, and it's at the edge of all of the kind of stuff that we have today of, watching, movies that are made for home consumption, not for theatrical consumption. Movies that are really just commercials for video games, this kind of stuff. So this edge of it, what it is now. Okay, there are the two emails. That's the best way to get in touch with me. If you have to get in touch with me, it is through email. And you check the testing center website to find out their hours of operation, so you'll always be there on time for the test. That's it. The end. We did it. We're done. Thanks. Bye. Yes.